Good morning, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started here. I know you probably see me playing around on the GoToWebinar here, but appreciate everybody being able to join this morning. My name is Bob Rabbit. I'm the VP of Managed Services here at ITS Partners, and today we're going to talk about how to overcome roadblocks to DLP maturity. So there's a couple of aspects to keep in mind as I go through here. It's really the first thing that I really want to walk through is just kind of describe the issues that we typically see, right? Those roadblocks that we typically see, from a services perspective that are preventing organizations from kind of achieving what they're looking for related to DLP. And then from there, as we walk through, I want to talk a little bit about ITS, how we approach helping customers achieve and move past those roadblocks. So again, appreciate everybody joining. Final reminder, or maybe not final reminder, but if you have any questions, please enter them into the GoToWebinar application. We'll gather all of those, and then once we're complete here, we'll get answers to those and send them out to everybody who is able to attend. So as we think about data loss prevention, right? Not just as a tool set, but as a program. One of the keys that we've identified over the years is that there's a lot of organizations out there that have invested in data loss prevention tools, not to say process, but even tools, but not, it's also very common that those organizations are not getting the benefits or the values from those DLP investments that they originally had hoped for. The way that I like to articulate that is their hopes and dreams aren't being recognized, right? I think we all recognize that when when there's a new initiative in the in the organization, whether it's data loss prevention or something else that you might be implementing, there's a lot of hopes and dreams that go into those initiatives. But unfortunately, with DLP and even other technical solutions, a lot of times those hopes and dreams aren't recognized, right? Especially after once you get past the initial stages with DLP, right? One of the main issues that we see here as it relates to not getting the value out of DLP has to come back to again, the focus is too narrow. And again, we'll talk about these reasons, but the focus is too narrow. It's a checkbox. And therefore DLP just kind of stagnates. So that's really the issue that we see. Is a lot of times we help organizations get DLP off the ground, or we come into organizations once they've had DLP implemented and it just hasn't moved past stage one, if you will. So very common issue, something we see over and over and over again. And I wanted to walk through some of those key reasons that we see not again, DLP not progressing. So as we think about the roadblocks, this is not an exhaustive list, right? Every organization is unique. There's things that happen, but what we've noticed over the course of the years is there's kind of three main issues that seem to come up over and over and over again, and there's obviously sub bullet points here, if you will, but there's really three main things that we see over time that really kind of, once the implementation is over, prevent things from maturing, right? Prevent that DLP program from maturing and continuing and bearing fruit within the organization. So one of the biggest culprits that we see is that first one we see listed there is the explosion of false positives, right? When you get a DLP solution, whether it's semantics DLP or other DLP solutions that are out there in the ether, if you will. One of the big things that most organizations see is there's just an explosion of these false positives, right? You get things implemented, you get rolling, and it's just every day it just seems like there's hundreds, if not thousands, of these issues that aren't really issues that are cluttering up your inbox. Lack of a review cadence, right? Some of these lead to one leads to the other, right? Where either due to the flood of false positives or for some other reasons that we'll get into here in a second, there's just not a review cadence, right? Nobody's really looking at the data, nobody's looking at the incidents and really trying to figure out what's going on, and so it just kind of stagnates, right? Example of this would be some organizations we were working with recently where they'd had DLP as a program and as a tool implemented for 2 or 3 years, and they still hadn't migrated past stage 1. Part of that was due to just, again, a lack of that, mature review cadence and making sure that issues were being handled. And then the third thing that we see very commonly is kind of a reliance on default reporting, right? Relying on the out-of-the-box reports, which there's nothing wrong with them, but they are, they are default reports. They're not telling you what you need to know, right? So all of these things kind of put together, we see time and time again are, at best demotivating organizations from continuing to mature their DLP implementation or DLP program, or causing it to become shelfware, right? So some real key aspects. So let's dig in and go a little bit deeper on this. So false positives. What's really causing these false positives, right? And again, I'll make an assumption here that several of you, on this webinar are experiencing this today, right? You're looking at your DLP solution, and it's just, you're getting inundated with all of these incidents, all of these issues that aren't really issues, right? It's like, man, this solution or this process isn't working because we're just getting, we're getting nailed to the wall with all these false positives. Well, there's a couple of aspects that go into that, right? First and foremost, again, that we see is a lack of process and tool knowledge when it comes to data loss prevention, and that's not necessarily a negative to any one individual. It's just that happens over time, right? And we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second. But you will see, and it happens time and time again, is you get a solution implemented, you get people enabled, and then priorities change, people change, and over time you lose some of that knowledge, you lose some of that expertise, and therefore frankly the tool itself is not configured appropriately to address the business problem. So you get that wrong mindset run across this over and over and over again. I think fortunately in the industry, I was just reading a survey, I think that came out late last year, of what keeps CISOs up at night. This was discussed during Microsoft's Ignite conference earlier this week. The number 2 thing was data loss, right? Information protection was the number 2 thing on CISOs' minds after vulnerability management and threat identification and remediation. The number 2 thing was information protection and data loss. So I think we're swinging back to where this, the whole concept of preventing data loss and protecting information is becoming more important, but we still run into it day in and day out where, it's a checkbox mindset. Yep, we have a DLP tool, that must mean we're preventing data loss, so we're good to go, right? And it just, that mindset, as with anything within IT or in the business world, is just, it's not good enough, right? It leads to that atrophy of the solution set and the process. And then finally again, kind of coming back to that out-of-the-box mentality, right? That kind of goes with the mindset of, hey, my DLP solution comes with a HIPAA or a HITECH or a SOX or PII or what have you. It comes with all of these policies out of the box. I can just turn them on, right? And magically everything starts working. Well, the out-of-the-box mentality just, again, it tends to cause more issues than it solves, really, at the end of the day. They're a great baseline. I'm not trying to make a case that out-of-the-box policies are bad. They're a really great place to start. But organizations have unique needs that change over time, and trying to use out-of-the-box policies just doesn't cut it, right? So this again gets back to those false positives, where you can have a great baseline with an out-of-the-box policy, but it needs to be tuned to your organization in order to reduce and hopefully eliminate as much as possible that flood of false positives. It's inevitable, right? Every organization sees that. So when we think about incident reviews and maturity cadence, what are the key aspects in terms of preventing organizations from from addressing that? A lot of this is additive, right? In terms of one thing causes the next, right? So one of the first things we see here is improper policy tuning that we were just talking about, right? Where if you're not tuning the policies appropriately, you're either not getting incidents, right, or you're getting too many incidents, or you're getting the wrong incidents. And again, all of this tends to kind of tends to lead to the, DLP crying wolf one too many times. Eventually it becomes white noise, and you stop paying attention to it because it's just, there's too much going on in front of you. Governance is another big thing. Again, this is kind of related to the whole mindset thing, but a data loss prevention program can be a hot potato within organizations. We see that over and over and over again, where nobody really wants to own the DLP program. I'm not talking about the tool, I'm talking about the overall initiative around managing and mitigating DLP, data loss within an organization, where there may be an initial mandate from a CISO or CIO or CEO or what have you that, hey, we need to have a data loss prevention program, but then that doesn't really translate down in the organization to someone really owning it and making sure that it's pushed forward. And just like anything else, if nobody owns it, it ain't getting done, right? So another big component there, where again we see DLP programs not being pushed forward to maturity because nobody's really caring about it, right? Nobody owns it. Nobody's being held accountable for it. So why pay attention to it at all? Just as a quick example, quick aside on the too many incidents and improper tuning side of things, we had an experience with a customer just a couple of weeks ago now, where they had great intentions, right? And they had some good knowledge, and they were really trying to make their DLP program and solution set work appropriately. So what they've done is they noticed, hey, we have a flood of these false positives coming in, right? So what they did was they wrote custom reports to filter out the false positives from showing up in those reports. So the false positives are still being poured in at a very high rate. We'll talk about this here in a second, but a very high rate. The false positives were still pouring into the system. They were just writing reports to ignore them, right? Which really isn't the right way to go about it. They were trying, they were trying to do the right thing, but at the end of the day, they were relying on trying to write some reports to make up for the fact that they were getting too many incidents, and their policy tuning just wasn't where it needed to be. So again, some common things that we see here is, again, reviews aren't happening. A lot of it comes into too many tickets and not focusing, focusing your efforts in the right place. Okay. Thirdly, reporting. Again, realizing that we're kind of taking the big three here. There's obviously more reasons and roadblocks to DLP not maturing. But reporting is a big thing here, right? And just as with any solution set, lack of knowledge really comes into play a lot, right? And again, obviously there's a fairly shameless plug here for our services, whether it's advisory or managed services here, where if you as an organization or our customers help rely on us, then it becomes our problem to be the experts in the tool, and we are. We'll talk about that more here in a second, but we see this over and over and over and over again. Maybe at the beginning of the implementation or what have you, you've got someone who gets the training, gets the enablement, but time after time we see initiatives change, people change seats, and that knowledge goes away within the organization. So you're kind of left with someone who's kind of their part-time job to know what's going on, and just really don't understand the solution set and how to get the information out that they need to from a technical perspective. But also, as we see here in the third bullet point, kind of misunderstanding how to pull out what's important to the business, right? You might get someone who's a really hardcore technical resource, really can pick apart the solution, but just doesn't really understand what's important to the business, right? Or the business has a really hard time telling them or articulating in a way that's consumable what is important, so that that data can be extracted from the solution set. So you have some conflicts there, a lot of which revolves around process and technical know-how that really limits success. And then again, I know I beat this drum quite a bit, but again, relying on default out-of-the-box reports, right? There's some great reports there, but again, if you're relying on default out-of-the-box reports, those, as with anything, default out-of-the-box reports are built for a broad audience, right? To be kind of the catch-all for as many scenarios as possible. and they don't necessarily address your specific needs as an organization. And therefore, again, time and time again, as we're talking with our customers, you get complaints on, well, these reports just stink, right? It's like, well, it's not so much that the reports stink, it's that based on your mindset and initiatives, and or skill set, we haven't taken the time to really figure out what reports are important, what data is important, and how to actually go get that in a consistent manner. So really, as we think about this, and I know I'm kind of setting up all the problems here, really what I'm talking about is there's really kind of a boom bust cycle when it comes to DLP. And again, this obviously this relates to other technical solutions as well, but we're talking about DLP today, where we see this over and over and over again, this cycle that we see in front of us, where organizations have an initiative. You kind of see there on the left-hand side, they have an initiative to go implement a new DLP program, get some new tools in place. We're gonna make this great, right? This is gonna be, we're gonna get DLP licked, and you get some help maybe, right? So maybe you get ITS to come in and help get you off the ground, get you into orbit, do some of the core configuration, hand off to your internal team, do some enablement. Everything's looking hunky-dory. 6 months later, 12 months later, you haven't moved, or you've actually, in some cases, we've seen organizations regress, right, to the point where their solution set and program has effectively become shelfware, right? And it happens. There's a variety of reasons for that. I've mentioned some of them already. Two of the primary have to do with shifting priorities within an organization, right? The shine comes off of DLP as the new cool thing to do, and therefore the focus in the organization goes elsewhere. The other big factor is you lose the technical, some of the technical capabilities as well, right? People move within the organization to other areas, or they get tasked with other quote unquote more important initiatives, and again, you lose steam, you lose focus, you kind of you fall off the curve, if you will. And a lot of times what we see, obviously on our side, on the advisory side of things, is at some point it becomes important again. Hey, things aren't working well. Let's go get some help. You get an organization like ITS to come in and help. We get you back up in orbit, and then the cycle continues, right? So this is these are the roadblocks, and these are the things that we see over and over and over again that we want to try to help organizations get past. Because at the end of the day, I think this is what we all envision, right? This is what we all envision and want our projects to look like, right? As it relates to whether it's data loss prevention or any other project, really, at the end of the day, or initiative. What you want to see is achieving outcomes, not just initially, but over time, and continuing to mature that, right? So that's really what organizations are looking for, and that's where ITS comes in. This is where we're focused. And again, on the managed services side with us, that's that becomes not just our initiative, it becomes our responsibility contractually, right? This becomes our problem, right? To not just help you achieve those outcomes once, but achieve them over time. So very, very important. And at the end of the day, what does success look like? So we talked about some of the roadblocks and what are the issues. Well, what does success look like, right? And so as you're thinking about your DLP initiatives, what is it you're really trying to look for? The four main things that we come across, day in and day out, that we try to help organizations achieve, you see here listed before you, right? False positives. Again, I know I've beat this drum quite a bit, but it's so important. If you can reduce that signal to noise ratio and get to a point where you've significantly minimized the false positive, that is huge, because then you're getting valuable data that's actionable. You can actually do something about, and will help protect your organization. Along with that, there's some things that go along with that. Obviously, making sure that policies are designed to balance protection and productivity. This is key as well. A DLP program and the technical solution behind it, right? The technical tool behind it, it's very important to balance those two things out, right? You want to be able to protect your organization from data loss, but you also want to enable the productivity of your constituents, right? Your users, and allow them to do their day job, if you will, without feeling like they can't get anything done because data loss prevention program keeps preventing me from getting anything done. So that's super important. Processes for efficiently managing and responding to incidents, right? That kind of ties in back to the false positives, that you have a process in place that is working and is efficiently handling and responding to incidents, so that more and more you're addressing issues before they hit the front page, right? Because I think we've all seen the headlines, and I don't want to make this about scare tactics or what have you, but it does. It's still an important factor there, right? Is data loss is a real thing, and we see it every day. And the whole point of a data loss prevention program is to mitigate that and minimize it as much as possible. So we want to put those processes in place, and hopefully automated processes and policies. We'll talk about that here in a second. And then finally, a maturity roadmap, right? As with any other technical solution, and especially with a data loss prevention program, it's not something that you just put in and you forget, right? You just set it and forget it, and it works. You need to make sure that you've got a maturity program that's continually improving your approach, because your organization is continually improving and changing. So your DLP program needs to move along with that maturity as well. So that's what success looks like. Hopefully you got a little bit of insight there. What I want to do now is shift a little bit and talk about ITS specifically, right? What are we doing to help organizations? What is it we're bringing to the table to help organizations, again, mitigate all the issues that we talked about and achieve success, right? All the things we just talked about here. What is it that we're doing to help organizations move forward there? So before we get into kind of some of the specific areas that we address right now, I'm going to go through that kind of line by line, if you will, and really talk about our capabilities and some success stories that we have. I think it's important for you to understand kind of what we believe, right, as an IT services organization, right, that is trying to help our customers achieve the balance between productivity and protection. There's some fundamental kind of principles that we bring to the table every time that we approach an issue, right? Whether that's in an advisory capacity or in a ongoing operational management capacity. These are things that we really deeply believe and that inform the solutions that we address. So the first has to do with prioritization of outcomes. Again, these may seem obvious, but it's fascinating to see how many times we come into organizations and they want it all and they want it today, right? We're all human, we're kind of like that, but we being ITS have really over time come to the realization, emotionally and mentally, that you do have to prioritize. It's really true. There's a lot of best practices out there. They don't all apply to you 100% all the time. You got to prioritize what you're trying to do. Getting the right team in the right seat, whether you're looking internally from an internal resource perspective, you're looking at a partner, whatever the case may be. Whenever you're addressing a program or an initiative within an organization, you got to get the right team in the right seat consistently, right? It's really huge. Connecting the silos. As we think about the security landscape, whether it's vulnerability management or threat protection or data loss prevention within what we do day in and day out, the days of the security team being focused just on security and not really connecting and interfacing with the rest of the organization just doesn't cut it anymore. So that's a core philosophy that we've held for many years, and I think a lot of other organizations are starting to realize that, right? The security teams need to be talking with the systems management teams. It needs to be talking to the service management organization, right? All of these silos need to be connected and talk to each other to effectively deal with all the threats and issues that we're seeing these days. Process first, tool second. Again, another fundamental. None of these philosophies or principles are ranked because again, these are all important for us to address. Process first, tool second is another big thing, right? If you don't have a good process, just going out and buying a tool is not going to solve your problems. Now on the flip side, you want to maximize your tool investment, right? We're technologists. At ITS we got a bunch of nerds here that love to implement technology, love to implement process, and we want to help our customers maximize the solutions that you have invested in, right? Again, we see this over and over and over again where, the solution set that we deal with, we go into customers, we see what's going on and see that, hey, this solution that you've implemented has, 100 things it can do, you're using it for one thing, right? And so you're coming in and saying, well, let's go buy a new thing, right? Let's go buy a new tool because we need to go address this problem over here. When a lot of times you've already got the tools that you need in-house to address, whatever issues you're dealing with. Our job and one of our philosophies is let's try to use what you've already got as it makes sense. There's always the case where maybe a tool isn't right and it's not working. Fair enough, and we'd be more than happy to implement new tools as well. But at the same time, we want to balance that out to make sure that you're getting the maximal investment out of your tools as well. Automation. This is key. Again, a bit of a fundamental thing that we bring to the table. I'm sure as many of you on this webinar we feel automation is key. More and more every day we hear about machine learning, AI, all the things going on in the world today. Automation is key, right? The days of trying to throw more humans at all the problems, there's too much. We can't do that. So automation is key. And it's really coming to the fore in the security world as well. Because let's be honest, for many years in the security world, a lot of it was, we have the smartest guys who can hack through and really figure out what the problem is going on, and that's how we're going to address issues. There's too much going on in the world today to try to rely purely on humans getting everything done. So automation is key. We want to free up those humans to do strategic activities, do high value activities while still making sure that problems are being addressed and you're maintaining a good posture. And then finally, ongoing maturity. Again, that cadence of continual improvement, right? That's another philosophy for us is you can't stay still. If you're staying still, you're dying, right? You've got to continue to mature and improve things over time. So whether that's a project that we're implementing or a managed service that we're offering and helping operate, our goal is not to just lock in a solution and then run it for 15 years and never make a change. Our goal is to help continually mature and manage that over time to address the additional business needs. So I know I took a little bit of time on there. I appreciate you hanging out, but those are really some fundamental principles that we live by here at ITS and bring to the table every time we try to address issues. So how does ITS stand out? Where do we, what is it that we have that really helps us address the issues that we talked about a little bit earlier with DLP maturity and moving past the roadblocks? One of the key differentiators has to do with our team, right, and how we focus our resources, right, which go along the lines of specialization, right? So we absolutely have folks that are specialized in these areas, deeply understand both the process side and the tool side, so that you get that holistic approach, right? So we know, we're not just the guys that know the theory, but we know the practical side as well, and that's a very big strength. And in addition to that, it's interdisciplinary within ITS as well. We're not just focused on the traditional security, if you will. We deal with systems management, automation, asset management, and security, right? So bringing all of those pieces together into a holistic solution, I feel really sets us apart. Kind of goes back to that whole connecting the silos philosophy as well, as we're trying to provide a holistic approach and bring all of that to the table, right? So when we come to the table, we're bringing an entire team, if you will, not just not just one or two people that are focused, narrowly in one particular area. So that's a pretty key differentiator that we bring to the table. So the next thing, and again, focusing really on the DLP side of things as it relates to our managed service around DLP. This is a big one that we see a lot of our customers struggling with. So it's one of the things that I wanted to highlight is that we help become those first responders, level 1 triage, whatever, however you want to phrase that. We begin to become that front end to start filtering out all of the noise and all of the things that are coming into your DLP console, and making sure that it's as clean as possible, and so that as you go in and perform your activities, because this is a team activity, you being a customer are part of that team. What our goal is to minimize the noise that you see day in and day out. And there's a couple different ways that this happens. Part of this is our initial triage and first response, our ongoing incident review and cadence. We also build intelligence over time, right? This is, again, very, 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 very important. It's not just we come in, get things set up, and then we run things statically forever. No, we're learning with you over time and building a book of knowledge together with you, so we become smarter, we become more intelligent about how your organization works, and day after day we become more intelligent about what's truly a false positive, what's not, and to the point where there's situations where we don't even have to bug you, right? We just inform you later that, hey, yep, based on on the conversation we've had, we know that these set of individuals are allowed to do these type of activities. We saw incidents there. We went ahead and tuned policies to eliminate that, and we just inform you, right? So there's a working together there that we bring to the table to the best of our ability reduce the noise that you're seeing day in and day out. And again, that collective intelligence is so important there, right? Where it's not just one guy on an island, or gal, if you will, on an island, looking at incidents. We're collectively as a team at ITS bringing a group of individuals, a group of intelligence to the table to help make sure that we're mitigating and reducing the number of incidents that you're seeing day in and day out. Kind of going beyond defaults. This is another key here, that as we're doing those reviews and as we're as we're building intelligence about your organization, the way that you work, we're going and doing ongoing policy reviews and tuning, right? And again, that's so key. Is again, that's our goal, right? Is to make sure that you've got the most effective DLP program and solution as possible. So we're bringing a lot of intelligence to the table. It's not, hey, Mr. Customer, tell us what you want to do. We're bringing to the table, hey, listen, we've noticed that you're getting X% of false positives all the time. Here's our recommendations on how we think we should tune the policies to mitigate that, right? And then bringing that to the table, not just statically waiting for customers to come to us, but we're trying to bring that intelligence back to you and saying, hey, listen, I think we can be more effective if we do X, Y, and Z. And then from an overall business perspective, continuing to work with you to identify, okay, what are the changing business needs within the organization that need to translate into actual technical controls within the solution. We're also bringing that to the table. And then, might seem obvious, but again, it bears saying that we're also bringing all the intelligence from all the other projects and customers and things that we're working with to the table as well, saying, hey, listen, other organizations in your scenario, right, in your in your area are doing X, right? Or we're seeing this be successful. We're bringing that to the table every day, and continually improving. And again, going beyond defaults, which is super important. Reporting, again, is a huge thing for us, where we've seen some good feedback and success here, where we've actually built and figured out how to take the default reporting and go beyond it. And even outside of the DLP solution set, right, where we've become a big proponent of Power BI, right, Microsoft's Power BI tool. It's very, very effective, great tool, and we've done the legwork to figure out how to parse the data, that's within DLP into Power BI and provide even more useful analytics, KPIs, data back to our organizations. And then finally, we see here custom automation and diagnostics. That's our magic tool bag, right? So again, we come to the table with a wealth of tools and automation and things that we've already built based on the pain and suffering that we've gone through with other customers, that we can bring to the table and begin to implement day one as well. So again, a very key advantage you get to take advantage, that you as a customer can take advantage of. Quick example, this kind of goes back to something I mentioned earlier about the customer that had written reports to just filter out false positives. Well, the other side of that story, the finish line of that story was that we were able to actually tune the policies, right? So go actually address the root cause, tune the policies to where they moved from a false positive rate of about 100 to 200 incidents per hour down to 0. Now that's not always going to happen. There are certain situations where where you won't be able to get to 0, but in this case we're able to get to 0 false positives just by appropriately tuning those policies, which again is a huge benefit. You just think about all of the data you don't have to look at if you can filter that out of the equation. So coming into land here, just to quickly put some real specific bullet points on the solutions that we do offer from a management perspective around data loss. DLP, kind of two main flavors you see there on kind of the left-hand column or middle column there, managed platform. That's to keep the lights on from the platform perspective. But then all the way on the right is kind of an end-to-end fully managed DLP offering where we really are in the trenches with you and making sure that you're not just day one, but over time continuing to achieve the outcomes that you're looking for DLP maturity. One of the big keys there is acting as that that front end firewall, if you will, getting all those false positives, filtering them out, and making sure that you're seeing what only the things that you need to see. So other than that, again, as we kind of wrap up here, I promise just one or two more slides as a reminder. Again, this is the shameless plug, if you will, from an ITS perspective. Just as a reminder, we really have kind of two main service avenues as it relates to our offerings. The first, as you see on the left-hand side, is our advisory and project services, right? That's, hey, we need help getting this thing off the ground, or we need help getting back into orbit. Let's come in and do a project. That's what those guys do day in and day out. And then on my side, my side of the organization is a managed service where our responsibility is to manage outcomes over time, right? That's that shift in responsibility and outcomes off to a trusted third party, right, to us to manage those outcomes over time. So those are the two main flavors of services that we offer here at ITS. So with that, really appreciate everybody's time. Again, if you have questions, please feel free to enter them into the GoToWebinar application. If you have any other questions or want to find out more about ITS, our background, our philosophy, what we've done, feel free to visit our website, itsdelivers.com. As you can see here, we have a lot of different white papers and thought leadership that we make available out there for free in the different areas that we deal with, and I would encourage you to go out and consume as much of that as you would like to. So again, I'll leave this open, leave the webinar open for a couple of more minutes in case you're thinking of or typing up more questions, and then we'll go ahead and get this wrapped up. So with that said, appreciate your time today. Thank you, and have a great rest of the day.